Everyone, we're gonna do a bit of a different type of video this week. One question I always get is, how do you flower farm, work a full-time job, have a kid, make YouTube videos? And I think that the better question is probably, how much time do I spend on working on the flower farm and YouTube? So we're gonna do a week in the life of me. And of course, my life is not just flower farming and YouTubing. There's a lot more to it. So we're gonna break down how much time I spend in a day doing this side hustle stuff, but also give you a view into what's important to my life. Things like cooking. So it's not a cooking show, but today is Saturday morning. I was supposed to wake up earlier to go rip out thrips. I haven't had a lot of sleep, so decided to treat myself and sleep in. We'll figure out the feverfew later, but for right now, we're gonna make scallion pancakes for breakfast. We are certainly not going to go over every single meal that we make this week, but one of my favorite breakfasts is a scallion pancake with an egg on top. I am an American-born Chinese. I have been to China once, and one of my favorite street cart foods was this during breakfast. So I recreate it at home. It's not as delectable, but it still hits the spot. It is now after breakfast. Eric has the kiddo, and I'm working on the graphic for a pop-up that we are hosting with a local store in a couple of weeks. So I do it on Canva, and I had sent her a first iteration last night. She had some feedback, so implemented that and going to send that over. So that only took a minute. And last night, I would say probably took me about 15, 20 minutes to create it. So nowadays I do everything in Canva. Once you start using it more frequently, then you get a lot better at it. So for me, it's not that hard to make these anymore, but in the beginning, it would take me like an hour to create a graphic. I now finally have my iced coffee. It's a little bit past 11 and my 14-month-old is down for a nap. We can typically rely on 2 naps a day on the weekends. At daycare, I think she only takes 1 nap a day. But these 2 naps are really important because this is where productivity happens. So if we take a step back, I think this is a good time for me to orient to everyone as to just high level what my life looks like. I would say that my weekends used to be a lot more productive. Nowadays, we have a lot more lazy weekends. We don't have a lot planned. Sometimes we go down to my parents who are about an hour away. Sometimes we'll have some guests over, but for the most part, we are homebodies and we have a lot to do around the house in terms of home maintenance, outside maintenance, and all that stuff. But the other thing is, because my child does go to daycare 5 days a week, the main time that we have to spend with her is either during the evenings on the weekdays or on the weekends. So obviously we prioritize spending time with her on the weekends. And what that ultimately means is that unless if there is something really, really important that I have to do, I can have Eric watch her and then I go out outside of her nap time. But most of the time I try to make sure that I'm doing everything while she is napping. When she starts dropping naps to no naps, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but right now we still get a few hours of productivity each day on the weekend. So let's actually talk a little bit about what this looks like when she's taking a nap. So I will either be out in the field or I'll be doing computer work like I am right now. And I think that the computer work piece is probably something that I need to explain a little bit more, because people are probably like, how much computer work can there be? And when I think about it, there are 2 buckets of computer work. There is the content creation piece of computer work, but then there's also flower farm computer work. And I would say that this year, I am taking the content creation piece a lot more seriously. I'm taking YouTube a bit more seriously after seeing the momentum. And it is something that I am spending a little bit more mental headspace and time on in a way that I didn't in years 1 and 2. So what does that look like? Let's start with the content creation piece of it. So if I think high level about content creation, not only do I make YouTube videos, I now have a newsletter, I have a Patreon, and I also help with our weekly newsletter at our cooperative that I sell out to florists, which means that once a week, I write an email that goes out to all of our buyers, and it could be something like a focal crop, it could be behind the scenes, about the farmer, like whatever it is I'll write about. This week I procrastinated, so I'm going to do a fallback topic, which is me and my lilies, but we will also feature another grower who specializes in growing 5,000 dahlias and what that looks like. So you get the point. There's plenty of content for the entire growing season. And one of our goals is to use these emails as a way to make sure that the buyers understand what goes into quality product, why we charge a premium for these local stems, but also get people who have bought a buyer's pass but haven't shopped with us yet. So it's really to encourage people to stay attuned to our co-op and come back again and again. And that's really the point of email marketing, right? So those of you who have subscribed to my newsletter, hopefully you're getting bits of useful information. It's a way for you and I to connect a little bit more on a personal level that is outside of YouTube. I share a little bit more personal information in those newsletters. And the Patreon is for people who are looking for a little bit more extra business related information, especially when it comes to pricing. Or like yesterday, I had an article about making sure that your LLC is actually truly protected, because just because you incorporate as an LLC doesn't immediately absolve you from having your assets protected in the case that you get sued. So there's a lot of things that we do day to day that can actually muddy the waters, such as mixing personal and business finances. So you want to make sure that that's separate. And I give a couple of other examples too, right? So that's the type of value that I offer for those Patreon supporters who are there not only to just monetarily supplement what YouTube ad revenue gives me for making content, which really isn't that much, but it also encourages me to up my game in terms of the business type of content that I can provide. So those are the high level things that I need to think about on just a constant basis. And I would say that every evening I am actually working on content, and you'll see what I'm talking about throughout the week. I would also say that another big piece that goes into just headspace and needing the time to think, I often do this on commutes, is next video ideas. And I actually have something called, I use Airtable, and I brain dump all of the ideas that come into my mind in there. A lot of them never make it past just the idea stage, but if they do, and if I have time, I actually start drafting them into outlines, and I start just really bringing them to life in my head before I ever click the record button. So content creators on YouTube who do this full time spend a lot of time on ideation, on thinking about the topic. One of the things that I've really come to realize is that I can make the best video content, I can make the best video out there, but if I don't have the right thumbnail and the right title, it doesn't matter, because because people aren't going to click on it. And when people don't click on it, the algorithm thinks, oh, this isn't great content, so therefore I'm not going to feed it to a broader audience. So when content creation becomes more of a priority, all of that ideation stuff and thinking about what makes good content and what actually makes it interesting for people to click on becomes a much bigger part of the equation. So that's high level what I'm thinking about when it comes to content creation. Now let's talk about Flower Farm, right? Because content creation is like a job in and of itself. Now we get to the Flower Farm. There's also computer work related to the Flower Farm. One, you guys know that I sell lily bulbs. So I have a shipment of lily bulbs coming next week to ship out. And because it's summer and I don't have a ton of cooler space, my priority is to get those bulbs out ASAP. So what that means is this week, I am preparing all of those order invoices that came in. I am making sure that the bags are all properly labeled. I now have stickers on the bags, and I am making sure that everything is ready to go so that when those bulbs come, I can literally just pack them and get them out the door. Whoops. Because if I don't do that and I dilly-dally a bit, those bulbs are going to start growing in this hot weather that we have. I could get away with doing that sometime in like February and March when I had bulbs to sell, but definitely not during this time of year. So that's the lily bulb piece. I also have a pop-up that I am doing with a local business. So I talked earlier about creating a graphic. Now we're going a little bit back and forth on finalizing that graphic, but once that's finalized, the marketing starts. And I'll tell you, I'm a little bit behind already because I should have launched this thing about 3 weeks ago, giving it a little bit more than a month. But we still have about 2 weeks out to promote this. And so what that looks like is more email marketing to my list of local folks to let them know about this, but also I will be taking out a Facebook ad once again and making sure that it is being fielded to a broader population of people within our neighborhood. And then it also means that tomorrow, or
2 days from now, which is Monday, I'm going to be posting in our moms group where they allow business marketing Mondays for you to promote events, businesses, and things like that, right? So just thinking about when you have an event, there's a lot that goes behind in terms of making it successful to make sure that traffic shows up. The third thing that I have right now is I have a really, really small CSA launching next week. And I say really small because I only limited it to 8 spots and I did not do any marketing outside of just posting it twice on my Facebook. Right now, I have 3 people who signed up, and honestly, like, that's more than fine with me because these are going to be vase arrangements. They're going to take me more time than a market bouquet. This is really me getting compensated for learning how to design and upskill my design skills, which I really need to hone in a little bit more on. Now, I'm not sure how much further I'm going to go in design in the future, but it is something that was a goal this year for me to actively work on. So that means once a month, I get to practice on 3 vase arrangements on making a better arrangement. And with my CSA, I actually allow people to join later on. So this is 4 total arrangements over 4 months, so 1 per month, but I have an extra alternative month in case if people are on vacation. So if people want to sign on later, then they can also sign up for the October arrangement. Last but not least, next week what's happening is we actually have a local Girl Scouts troop coming over. Now, it's a very small group. It's like half a dozen kids, but I want to make it a good time for them. So I'm going to be preparing a handout for them. I'm going to be preparing just some stuff to put on paper. And the goal is really to connect them a little bit more with the outdoors, get them excited about growing. I'm going to be sending them home with some seeds. So that's just something that I've been talking about with a parent who used to be a winter tulip subscriber. She reached out to me and was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do this in June when things in the field are coming into bloom so that the kids can actually have something to look at. So that happens to be a one-off thing that normally doesn't happen, but it is happening next Friday, which is the same time as when my CSA launches. So we will be having both pickup as well as some kids on the farm to have a tour. And then one final thing, which is a little bit out of the ordinary, is I usually sell to my co-op on Wednesdays, which I will be doing, but I have a couple of florists who are interested in buying lilies outside of the co-op. So these are buyers who don't belong to the co-op and they're a little bit more around this area. So they're gonna come and pick up lilies. So I just need to make sure from an inventory perspective that I have what I need. I know how many lilies are in the fridge, by what variety and all that stuff. So you can tell, like, there's a lot that goes on. And we haven't even talked about the planting piece, me needing to go get rid of the feverfew, which has the thrips, right? So it's always a constant juggle of just prioritization of what needs to happen. And I would say that really digging into the weeds and knowing how to prioritize things makes a huge difference. So I keep on talking about thrips, but me understanding the reproductive life cycle of thrips is so massively important here because I know I have a few days to get rid of that feverfew. So it is a priority, but it's not at the top of the list. The top of the list right now is actually marketing that bouquet bar that I have with that small business, because that stuff takes time to build and it's not something you want to do last minute. So that's why I think that sometimes it's really important for us to understand a little bit more than just surface level. So that way it's not ready, aim, shoot. It's ready, shoot, aim, and all of the things that we have to do. I've talked enough right now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start editing parts of this video because there's no way I can get out this video on Saturday, knowing that I have clips from every single day. And when I have a longer video, like when I do a market vlog, I edit along the way, and it definitely makes life a lot easier because then on the final day, I only have maybe 10 minutes to edit and I can just ship it off. I got a chance to do some light editing, and then right after it was lunch where I was preparing for the YouTube live that I have tomorrow with my friend Jordan. Now, Jordan did a lot of the legwork by populating the outline, and I take a look at that outline, add my feedback, but then I throw it all into ChatGPT to help me summarize it and bucket into themes. So that way we have a guided discussion for tomorrow.
Right after, I got started on making the handout that I want to give to the Girl Scouts on Friday. And as you can see, I use Canva for everything. And I find that their pre-made templates are a really great place for me to start. And I use that and work from there to add in photos as well as text. This is not done yet, but I would say about 60% of it is done. Meanwhile, Eric was doing more work around the house, including getting blinds up. Afterwards, we had some family fun outside with bubbles. We even got a chance to take a tour in the field where I was looking at our yarrow to see if I could list any more bunches for pre-order for my market, since there's a designer that needs a couple hundred stems this week. Working out is extremely important to Eric and myself. There is no farm without a healthy body, so it is something that we prioritize, and it's something that you're going to be seeing throughout the entire week. The intention today was to get something spicy and something to get the heart rate up, and I certainly achieved that.
Well, got the spice I wanted out of that one. A little longer than I expected. I was thinking I could do sub 17, sub 20, good enough. I think Eric actually has the baby down, so I'm gonna see if I can go outside and do some field work. Got my hat on, we are ready to go outside. Eric actually fell asleep with the baby, so I'm taking advantage and getting out there to address the situation as quickly as possible. Here's all the feverfew behind me. Someone asked a great question in my last video, which is, what am I gonna do with this? So last year I had over 200 plants. You can see how big feverfew is. I just couldn't throw them all away, so I ended up composting them far off. The reality is we have a lot of clover in the field as well as in our grass areas, and thrips overwinter in there. So, but what I am going to do is I'm going to clip the petals or the heads off, throw them into a trash bag and get rid of them. But then I'm going to dig up the entire plant and then compost them, because the adult thrips are eating the pollen in the flower head, and they might have injected larvae into the leaves or the stems, but I'm hoping that by the time those are maturing, the plant will have basically withered away and died and not given them food source. We also turn the compost so they'd be in the dirt, so it's a very low chance that the larva would survive. So here we go.
As I was bagging the feverfew heads, of course I changed my mind. I am going to now cut down whatever is left of the feverfew down to the ground and allow it to give me a second flush in the fall, which happened for me last year. And at that time, there would be no more thrips. And then afterwards, I would be removing the plants and replacing those with divided yarrow in that space.
That took about 25 minutes, which isn't a short period of time, but necessary because this area is not accessible by tractor. I mean, I could use something like a sickle, but I didn't want the thrips to basically fly all over and land on some neighboring plants. So that's why it's so labor intensive to do this. Now, there were a few moments where I was like in denial. I was like, are there thrips on here? I definitely saw thrips before, but I was like, are there still thrips? And I looked and I banged one against the bag and it was just thrip central. Let me show you what the bag looks like. So there's a couple of thrips on the outside of the bag, and there were a lot more before, so they're already flying. They can't fly huge distances, but the winds can carry them pretty far. So that's why this is going right into the garbage. Also had the opportunity to harvest some more lilies. These are gonna go in the fridge, and I'm gonna go in and check on the kiddo, take a shower if she's not awake yet, and yeah, this is it for outdoor field work today.
We ended the day by going to the park, grabbing a bite to eat, and then grocery shopping for the rest of the week. We came back home, I put the kiddo down to sleep for the night, and then it was back to some more work. But let's talk about how much time I spent on the flower farm today. I spent a total of 155 minutes, with only 35 minutes of that being field work outside. The rest of that was all content creation related on a computer. So about an hour and a half of that was related to YouTube, and the other 40 minutes for flower farming. So that is close to 2.5 hours of work for the flower farm on a Saturday. And now I am going to go enjoy the brownies that Eric just made.
Good morning, everyone. It is about 8 a.m. on Sunday. We are 2 hours away from our YouTube live, and I still have a little bit of prep work needed beyond just the outline. So the outline's done, but I'm gonna take you behind the scenes to show you some of the other more technical things that I do need to do. But before that, I need to prepare breakfast, and I just wanna put out there that right now, my child is having some screen time with Miss Rachel. We typically give her screen time in the morning, and sometimes even in the evening when we're preparing dinner. So this is one of those things where I have no qualms about giving her screen time because she's spending all her time at daycare playing with other kids and toys, and typically in the evenings after dinner we are having a walk outside. So screen time is necessary for me because in the mornings I try to let Eric sleep in. He has really bad fragmented sleep. It's just the way he is from, I think, a prior medication that he had. But the point is that I rely on that in order to be a productive human, in order to make breakfast, in order to make lunch for myself and her to take to daycare, pack her bag. I just need to do that. And I just want to make sure that for all those moms out there who are feeling guilty about screen time, you do whatever you need to do to get stuff done. So we're going to prepare breakfast and then I'll take you behind the scenes.
Our YouTube lives utilize 2 different software for us to be able to share things like images, videos, and clips to help illustrate the points that we're making. And that's exactly what I was preparing this morning. Afterwards, there was the logistics of setting up the live, and then the live itself happened. It was a great live where we discussed spring reflections as well as crops that we would grow and not grow again. But as you can see, there is a bunch of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just a conversation that we are having. I am trying to make sure that things are flowing well in the chat, that I am answering the chat, as well as putting up those images and clips that I had prepared before. So there's a bit of behind the scenes, but overall it's always a fun time.
It's around 12:30 right now. We finished our live a little bit more than an hour ago, and in that hour I caught up with Eric. I put the baby down for her first nap of the day, but I've also been doing a lot of phone work when it comes to coordination with florists. So specifically lilies. I have a pickup later today, so confirm that she is picking up later this evening, but I was also texting with a couple of florists to see when their event was, and so that way I could time to make sure that the lilies are going to be opening on that prime day. One of the challenges of working with the lilies as a designer, especially if you're buying in wholesale from a traditional wholesaler where they're shipping in flowers, is that those flowers are typically harvested and shipped very prematurely. So a florist may not know if the lily is going to open in time for that event. As a local grower, I have a lot more control over that. So for example, one of the florists texted me and she said, hey, we have a wedding on Friday that we'd like to use your peach color lily for. We just need to make sure that it's a little bit more open by Friday. And so absolutely, that means I go downstairs right now and I'm taking them out of the cooler. If a wedding's on Sunday, I might actually take them out maybe Monday night, Tuesday, because transporting lilies that are completely open is going to be a pain, but you also want to make sure that they're starting to crack by the time Wednesday comes along, so that way they can design, see how it looks open, and by the time it gets to the venue, they're actually really open. So just some considerations to have, and I'm gonna go downstairs and manage my inventory and make sure that all those lilies are going to be at the stage they need to be for Wednesday. Whoops, forgot to start the camera as I'm taking these lilies out. Good Lord, it's so heavy. Okay, close the fridge. No. Uh-oh. 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 Freezer burn. Oops. That's not good. Well, these are the lilies that are supposed to be picked up later today. The good news is I have another bunch, just not as many. So I've got 4 stems over here. This is not good. So I'm gonna have to text her back and see if she's willing to take a sub. This is the problem with not having a professional cooler, is you run into things like this. But it is what it is. And look, I could get upset about it, but that's life. So I'm just gonna see what else I have and go from there. But I was talking earlier about making sure that I have some lilies that are ready for prime time on Wednesday. Okay, so I can see what happened here. I think that actually I'm cutting the lilies a little bit too tall. I need to keep them a little bit shorter, so that way in the cooler they're not too far up, because there's a couple of damaged ones in here. Good news is I have plenty of these, so that one doesn't matter. But let me see what else. Okay, so everything else is actually fine here, and I have some more in the other cooler. The problem is that woman wanted rose lilies for tonight, and I only have about 4 stems. So I'm gonna see if she'll be willing to take some other lilies. But in the meantime, where is it? This bunch over here is called Minorca. It is a orange colored, like peach color lily. And so I would actually start having these out tonight. So tonight's Sunday, and I would just start having them open a little bit more. There are a couple of buds here that are already cracked open, and I would actually I would start taking this bunch apart and making sure that I have the ones that are open in the fridge still, take them out probably on Monday, tomorrow evening, and then take the ones that are a little bit more green and let them progress and open a little bit more, so that way by the time we get to Wednesday, ideally I want to transport them at this stage so that when they get to the studio in direct light, they're going to start opening up on Thursday, and then by Friday they're going to be perfect, because I'm also thinking about the florist transporting them to the venue. So gonna get going to arranging right now. All right, so I have a bucket over here that I'm coaxing these lilies to open a little bit more for. An email went out this morning that I prepared last night for my floral co-op. This week I did a focus on lilies. So we do a focus flower for each of the growers. Mine went out this week because we didn't have anything else to write about, and I have all these lilies coming in. And I think because of that email, I actually sold 40 more lily stems. So these are stems that are going to be used for Friday wedding, which is why they are out right now. The person who wanted the rose lilies still wants to come tomorrow to pick up 5 stems and actually pick up some nigella too. So I'm gonna have to harvest later for that, so that's ready for her in the morning. But overall, I'm finding that I'm moving the LA hybrids pretty well with the florists. The OT hybrids, which are the bigger ones that have a trumpet light habit and are fragrant, are not moving as well. There's one florist who really likes working with them, but most other people seem to want the ones that are a little bit more upright as well as non-fragrant, which makes sense, especially if you're in a wedding that might be indoors. So I'm just happy that I am moving, I think it's about 50 stems at the cooperative, and then I'm gonna have some for market floor. But right now it is time for lunch, and Eric's been making sandwiches.
Now is probably a good time to mention that Eric is trained in French cuisine. That's right, Eric went to culinary school in Paris while we lived abroad for a year in Germany for one of my work assignments. There he was able to pursue a lifelong passion for cooking. And at home, he does cook quite a bit, and it goes without saying that one of the reasons why I can be so productive is because we split household duties. Tonight, we are tag teaming making fish and chips.
What makes these fries so good?
Chef.
How'd you make them?
Double fried fries.
I think she wants one. We finished making the double fried fries. We were having fish and chips tonight. So Eric is with the kiddo. I realize I haven't given her name. We'll call her E. Name begins with an E. So Eric and E are on the couch watching YouTube videos of making fish and chips. Now, we've made fish and chips plenty of times before, but Eric's always trying to perfect the batter. So I'm taking that opportunity to come out and do some more planting of rose lilies. I have a crate over here, and then I also need to harvest some more lilies. I feel like somehow I'm getting more lily demand. So I just want to make sure that I am planting enough for secessions that will be ready by end of August at this point. Perhaps the most important task is harvesting lilies on time. These, when harvested again, can be held in the cooler for up to 2 weeks.
if I miss them even by a day, that significantly impacts the amount of time I can keep them in the cooler, unless if there are secondary and tertiary buds. But I like to obviously harvest when all of the buds are closed. So this is the perfect time. And so far, knock on wood, I've been pretty on top of this and feeling good about it. Guess who fell asleep? Both Eric and E. Gonna take advantage and do a short workout. My legs are jello from yesterday. Usually today would be a rest day, but because Tuesday I have a long day at work, I'm not gonna get home until late. I have to go pick up E from daycare immediately, get dinner done with Eric, and then I have to go harvest. I'm not gonna be able to work out, so thinking ahead, that means I have to work out today, so we're gonna make it short and sweet.
3, 2, 1. Exercise 1.
Every day that we work out, there is an intention, and today's intention was to spike that heart rate up in short burst intervals. So I did 2 sets of Tabata, and even though the total working time was just under 8 minutes, I definitely accomplished that and fitness was achieved. Afterwards, when Eric was working out, E and I went out to the field where I harvested a couple of bunches of Nigella for the florists who wanted to pick up tomorrow, and then it was time to make dinner. It's time to tally up the numbers, and today I spent a total of 4.5 hours on b.a.r.e Flower Farm. Now 70% of that was related to YouTube content creation, partially because we had a live that was over an hour, but I would say that this is actually a little bit on the higher side for me on a weekend. Typically, I would have a little bit more of that weighted towards field work, and I would say that I try to spend no more than 4 hours on a weekend on the farm because I am trying to spend a little bit more time with my child.
Good morning, welcome to the work week. It's Monday and it's around 6:45 a.m. I woke up a little bit extra early to buffer enough time to harvest some yarrow because I would like to see if I have some extra bunches that I can offer for pre-order before pre-orders close at 4 p.m. today. Remember, there's that florist that needs these bunches for a wedding, and a pre-sold bunch is better than an at-risk bunch that I bring to market floor. Remember, I have to leave. I cannot take back the flowers that I don't sell, so I have to be cognizant about what I bring to market floor and what I'm risking not to sell. So we're gonna harvest yarrow right now and see how much I have left over.
Wow, I had significantly underestimated the amount of stems that I would have for this week's cooperative, and part of that is because I had been a little bit too aggressive last year to the point where some weeks I felt like I was pinched for stems and using less than quality stems that I would have liked for florists. So this year I erred on the side of caution and I only listed 5 bunches for pre-sale. I already harvested 8 bunches, and I know I probably have another 5 or 6 bunches left to harvest tomorrow before we get to market. I just want them to mature a little bit more. But let me tell you guys, this yarrow is amazing. There are times when I question why I'm growing other things because yarrow sells so well at my cooperative and at such a high price point with a high profitability that it really makes little sense for me to grow anything else. But that's why I'm going to be multiplying my yarrow and making sure I at least double, if not triple, production for next year. The last thing I'm doing here is emptying out the dirty water from the original harvest and then putting them into a bucket of clean water with a CVBN tablet where they will condition for the next couple of days before they go to market.
It is actually now close to 8. I also had a chance to harvest some lilies, and then more lily orders rolled in last night from the cooperative. So I was trying to juggle some stuff around because of course the cooler that froze my lilies is now acting up, and this is a fridge that has been acting up for a bit here and there. We keep it because my in-laws come once like every few months and they do need that separate fridge, so we keep it for that purpose. But I basically had to empty out all the contents of the lilies in that fridge and put in the other, so that took a little bit of time. But right now it is time to get E ready for school and myself ready for work.
Sustainability is really important for Eric and myself, and it's the main reason why I started a flower farm. But in our day-to-day lives, we also try to live by sustainable values, and when we had a child, we knew we wanted to use cloth diapers. Now, if you live in a place that is water constrained, cloth diapers may not be a sustainable choice for you, but that's not the situation for us, so the elimination of plastic was really attractive. That means that every single week, basically every 5 days or so, we are doing laundry for cloth diapers. I fold them and Eric washes them. It's really easy. Our daycare has gotten on board and everyone agrees that it's no different than using a disposable diaper. I spent about $550 on our stash, and that's all we've ever spent, and we will basically save $1,500 down the line with cloth diapers. One of the best gifts of being able to work remotely on Mondays and Fridays is the fact that I get to have a leisurely breakfast with both Eric and E. And that means that I don't have to rush because there is no commute. I just have to go to my office. So this morning I had breakfast while checking some emails and got to my desk around 9:30, where thereafter I had some meetings. Before I knew it, it was lunch, and I got a lot done during noon to 1 p.m. First, I had a florist pick up that nigella as well as the lilies that I had harvested the day before, and then I got going to harvesting my sea holly for the cooperative. Now, you'll see that I harvest, bunch, and wrap directly into the bucket, and that saves me so much time because that means I don't have to do any more post-harvest processing for the cooperative. When you work a full-time job and are selling wholesale, there is a constraint to how much time you have in terms of what you can sell because you are harvesting basically 48 hours before market day. So staggered harvesting as well as efficient harvesting plays a huge role here. Here I harvested about 80% of the sea holly that I pre-sold. The sea holly was bonkers and I have a lot more to harvest, but I will save some for the week after since it is not all fully mature yet. Eric made me a sandwich after harvest, and at this point it was just past 12:30 p.m., so still plenty of time to do some computer work while I was having my sandwich and Eric was preparing dinner for tonight. I spent the majority of the time doing computer work preparing for a YouTube collaboration that I have coming up this Friday with another YouTuber. We are going to be talking about U-Picks, and what that means is me drafting a list of questions for her so that she can review ahead of Friday and we both come prepared to the interview. Afterwards, it was back to an afternoon full of meetings, and to be honest, I wasn't upset about it. I get to work with people who I call my friends, and I know how lucky I am to be able to work in a culture where there is no micromanagement. I get to really make my own schedule, and as long as you get the work done, that's really all that matters. So I enjoy the people who I work with as well as what I do. There's a lot of business and strategic thinking involved, which obviously makes me really happy to be able to partake on a day-to-day basis. What's the workout today, Coach? You don't know yet? On the weekdays when we have childcare, Eric and I get to work out together. So today was a partner workout. I go, you go, and the intention was to do some lifting. I had hurt my shoulder a few weeks back actually from sleeping, and so I couldn't lift, but I scaled appropriately, and again, fitness was achieved. Afterwards, I picked up E from daycare while Eric finished dinner, and luckily, E was actually entertaining herself, so I got a chance to finish the handout for the Girl Scouts on Friday, and I finished that in Canva, so you can see that the final design looks nothing like the original, but having that draft really helped expedite things along. After dinner, with the days being so long now, we get a chance to squeeze in a walk before we put E down for sleep. We do a couple of chores, including cleaning up the kitchen, some laundry, and then it's back to work. Another day, another tally. Today, I spent a total of 3 hours and 20 minutes on b.a.r.e Flower Farm, and that time was pretty evenly split between flower farming work and content creation. Now, it's really worth pointing out that my ability to work remotely, even just 2 days a week, makes a huge difference here. So I don't have to factor in commute time, and I'm able to use a part of my lunchtime to do flower farming work in a way that I obviously wouldn't be able to if I were at work. So all of you flower farmers who are required to be on site for your jobs, I see you and I understand, because you're going to see over the next 3 days, I have to be in the office, and that definitely impacts my ability to be a little bit more productive on the flower farm because it limits my time to basically only working after work.
It's another beautiful morning around 7 a.m. I do have to go to the office, but we are out in the field. I'm gonna harvest some more lilies that have colored up, and also going to do a very, very quick pest walk on the lilies and look at everything else that is coming to bloom, because tonight I have to harvest. So just trying to figure out what else I need to do. What I will do at work is, because I have a printer at work, I have a printer at home, but I actually have a limited amount of pages. I will print out the Girl Scouts document as well as the harvest list for today's orders that I need to fulfill for the co-op, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, I'll show you what's in bloom right now.
The field is starting to kick into high gear, which is nice because it means I'll actually have flowers for the rest of the month and into July. But part of the reason for this walk is for me to see what else I'm going to have in bloom so that I can list it tomorrow night for pre-orders that will open on Thursday morning.
There's the sucker. Can you see it? Gonna kill him right now. I can tell that there's a lily beetle here because you can look at the leaves and you can see that they're browned, a little bit thin from all of the chewing from the beetle. And usually that's a sign that there might be larvae. But yes, that's the beetle, and that's what I'm looking for in the mornings. So now that I found presence of the scarlet lily beetle here, I'm checking all of the leaves to make sure that there's no larva underneath there. And luckily, the life cycle or reproduction life cycle isn't as fast as something like a thrips. So if I can't catch the eggs, which are orange, I can always catch the larva. So I think this is one. So let me peel this off for you guys. So you can see over here that this leaf's been chewed through. This is some larva on here, and it's been covered in feces. So what I do is I just destroy the feces, basically do this, pick up the stick, and then now it's all dead. So this is what I do to be able to grow lilies in the Northeast. So some real talk right now. I grew so many more lilies this year than last year that keeping up with the lily beetle is becoming a lot more time consuming than I imagined, just because obviously now there's a lot more food to eat, it can reproduce. I have to really be on top of it. And so that's why this year is make or break for me with lilies. I've actually moved a lot more now in the third week of offering lilies at my cooperative. First week, I was actually getting really defeated. Second week was a little bit better, but now I'm starting to see momentum. And I even had a florist text me saying, hey, can you grow this specific type of lily? So I think I still will be doing lilies next year, just scaled back a bit more. But this season is basically an experiment to see if I can get my florists to really bite and accept that lilies are great to work with. Not the biggest harvest, but still quite a bit. And I'm gonna go put these inside in the fridge, get ready for work. We've got some plugs also coming in today. We've got more perennial plugs coming in later in the week. And then we also have lily bulbs coming in on Saturday. So it's a pretty loaded week. And I think in the future, I'd do a little bit better planning to make sure lily bulbs and plugs don't come in at the same time. But yeah, it's gonna be a busy day, and let's get ready for work. I just got back home from work. It's a little after 4:15 right now. It's perfect weather for harvesting. I still have a little bit more of work I need to do, but I can complete that later in the evening when it's dark. So I'm gonna get to finishing harvesting. So this is what my pack list looks like. Basically, I go down through the list to make sure I have everything that I need. I get everything ready. And because it's going to be low 50s tonight, I'm actually gonna leave everything outside. And that way in the morning, I can just grab and go. So we're gonna get going to harvesting right now.
That harvest took way longer than I expected, primarily because I had a lot more yarrow than I had anticipated, even though I did that morning walk. I would say that I had 3 times the amount of yarrow that I pre-listed, so I was pretty conservative when it came to the pre-orders, and I'll definitely fix that for next time. I harvested about 80% of the yarrow that was mature for market floor, and I left 20% on because I'll have that CSA that I have to fulfill later in the week, as well as a couple of retail bouquets that are a la carte and for the country store. So I would say that I spend a decent amount of time just harvesting and processing and making sure that everything is ready to go, so that by the time I finish dinner and put the baby down to sleep, all I have to do is then focus on the lilies. Now, one of the constraints that I have when selling wholesale is not necessarily growing more varieties. It's a matter of harvesting them. And you'll notice that I had started harvesting things like lilies days in advance, and I had gotten a harvest of yarrow and sea holly 2 days in advance. But the majority of the harvesting does happen either on Monday or Tuesday night to prepare for a Wednesday market. I only realistically have a couple of hours in the evening and maybe an extra hour if I wake up earlier, but my constraint is due to time for harvest, and then you'll see later on the amount that I can fit into my car. So these are real considerations for you to think about, especially if you want to go on the wholesale route and you're working a full-time job.
All of the non-lily flowers are done. But look what came today. Woohoo! Plugs! So I'm gonna open these, put them out in the field where they will be able to, I guess, harden off, and then we'll get to planting these sometimes over the weekend. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Assuming this is ageratum. Oh no, this is aster. Whoops. Oh yeah, look at that. Home stretch. Got the lilies to take out, and I'm just gonna get going. It's like 8:30 right now. Just put E down. Eric's actually out with a client, so I'm looking forward to getting this done, doing some light computer work, and going to bed.
It is time for another end of day recap, and these recaps are really helpful for me now that I am recording down every single minute that I'm spending on b.a.r.e Flower Farm. Today, I spent just a little over 2.5 hours, with the majority of that being harvesting and getting ready for my cooperative tomorrow morning. Now, I'll say that I am spending a lot more time managing lilies than I had expected, and that is due to the extra amount of volume that I'm growing this year and not having something like a walk-in cooler. That means that I am constantly juggling and rearranging the lilies in the refrigerator to make sure that I am moving lilies that are opening first, and also making sure that the lilies are in that prime state for the florist. So that is definitely taking a lot more time than I had expected, which makes it even more imperative that I determine whether or not lilies are a worthy crop for me to grow in mass next year if I am selling wholesale, because now there is additional added labor cost that I had not previously anticipated. By the time I finished, it was actually close to 10 p.m. and it was just too late for computer work. I wanted to prioritize sleep, but not before getting in some chicken nuggets with Eric, and that was a great way to wind down the day. I'm always impressed when growers can bring a lot of product to the market in an SUV, because today I only had about $600 worth of product and I already felt like I was playing Tetris. Now, I do have an animal gate up in the back trunk, and that's because I have a very eager dog who wants to make his way up to the front seat. If I took that gate off, I could probably easily fit another 2 more buckets, but I managed to still fit all my buckets in and use the passenger seat. And then afterwards I came back to unload the dishwasher and help prepare E's stuff for daycare, because Eric had an early morning meeting and he had to get out the door ASAP. And then it was off to the market for me. So we are coming back from the market right now. It is just a little bit past 8. I left the house around 6 a.m. today, got to the market at past 7, and then helped set up. So when we say help set up, it means we're setting up the market floor, we're putting our pre-sold bunches into their respective buckets. So everyone who pre-ordered has a bucket with their name on it, or it's actually shelf space because they have multiple buckets. And then doing some quality control checking. So we print out everyone's order and we go through to make sure that the bunches are there as well as the bunches look good. So that all takes about, I would say, like 45 minutes to an hour to set up, depending on how crazy it is. And today I pre-sold close to $400 worth of product and brought maybe around $600 worth of product. So I still have an opportunity to sell on market floor. And I was leaving, there were some people already picking up the yarrow bunches that I had. Another big development today for me personally is the fact that I got to change a part of my schedule because the meeting got canceled and I get to work from home. So that's big, not just from a productivity perspective at lunch, but now I don't have to be worrying about sitting in traffic and driving about an hour and a half back up north. So it is a little bit over an hour just to get home, but home is still closer than where work is. And last night I didn't get a chance to actually finish that deliverable. So I'm going to be going home, finishing that deliverable, having my meetings, and then my afternoon is actually pretty light. And this is the honest truth about having a full-time job that gives me some level of flexibility. Obviously, I'm working 9 to 5, but you get pockets of dead time. And like at any type of full-time job where it's not like something where you're seeing patients or you're teaching, it's just a bunch of meetings, like you can have a level of flexibility in the sense that I'll just work a little bit more off hours. I'll work when it's in the evening. And then I might take some time during the day to do some flower stuff. So it all evens out is the point. And at the end of the day, it also allows me for the flexibility to do something like this. And I say this because I'm highly cognizant that there are many of you out there who either have employers who believe that you need to be sitting in the office 5 days a week, or your job demands that you sit in an office or you go to someplace 5-6 days a week, and it makes flower farming really, really hard. So the type of job that you work, whether or not you have to go into the office, you can be remote, makes a really huge difference. So that's it. I'm going to get back to driving. There's a lot of traffic, which is why I felt comfortable recording right now, but hopefully we get home pretty soon. I got home, finished my deliverable, had a couple of meetings, and then had about a 20-minute window before my next meeting. So I took that chance to do some computer work, and I sent out an email to the CSA pickup members to remind them that the first pickup is on Monday. Typically, I like to send this email the day before, but because it is the first pickup, I sent it out a few days in advance, and then afterwards, I went back to my meeting. I actually had a working meeting through lunch. I was able to grab a bite, but now it's about 3:30 p.m. and it's my turn to make dinner tonight. So we are having calzones. We make the dough from scratch, and because it is so warm this time of year, I can make that dough just a couple of hours before dinner. I also prepare the filling, which is sliced mushrooms that I saute, some shredded cheese, some pepperoni, some olives, and then you've got a great calzone. We also make our sauce from scratch, and this is down to our last 2 canned tomatoes that we have from the field, so I'm excited to re-can tomatoes for next year. And then it was back to a little bit more work before I signed off for the day. Another day, another workout. Today, the intention was to have a sustained high heart rate, but not overdoing it. Eric wanted to grind, and I wouldn't call this a true grinder, but it definitely got the heart rate up. So total time, it took us about 24 minutes, and that left me with time to harvest right after.
So because I was at home, we were able to pretty much start at like 5:05 and still have about 20 minutes left before I have to go pick up E. So I'm going to take this opportunity and go harvest. But because I don't have a lot of time, I'm not bringing the camera with me. I'm just going to bring my bucket and snips and go out. Just want to show you the bucket very quickly since I have to go pick up E. Got a bunch of yarrow, some cress, but more importantly, the bells are coming now. I know this is definitely a bit premature, but the bells are here and I wanted some more green funk. So yeah, and then we'll put these with lilies as a focal later tonight.
You'll scare it away.
What is that?
Man, what a day. By the time E went down, it was already past 9, but I really wanted to get these bouquets done so that I didn't have to have another early morning. It was pretty quick to make 3 bouquets, and I will be dropping off more on Friday, but Eric will be dropping off these for me tomorrow at around 10 a.m. when the country store opens. Now let's talk about numbers, because I spent close to 4 hours today on b.a.r.e Flower Farm, with the lion's share of that being at the cooperative before work. So we're talking about driving to and from the cooperative, which is about an hour each way, as well as spending close to an hour at that cooperative. I spent only 20 minutes on content creation, and that was largely emails, so CSA logistics plus some Patreon related stuff. But you can see this is a really, really long day for me. I'm spending a lot of time in the morning, then I have to go to work, and then after work, there's still some more bouquet making to be made. Now, I didn't even show you me listing product for pre-orders for my cooperative, and that happened somewhere along the way during the day, which also counts within those 20 minutes. So I'm tired and I'm gonna go to sleep, but I'll show you what these bouquets look like in the morning. This was a relatively uneventful morning because I had done most of what I needed to do for the flower farm the night before. So all I had to do was get myself and E ready for daycare and for work. So we left around 8:45. I dropped her off at daycare, and then I was able to take my first meeting in the car.
It's just a little bit past 4 p.m. Got back home. One of the nice things about my job is that if I don't have any meetings in the late afternoon, I can get a head start coming back so that I'm not stuck in rush hour traffic. And it makes a huge difference because sometimes it's the ability for me to work out versus not work out, since then I'm running straight to daycare. But in this case, I came home and I ran straight outside to harvest some lilies. So this is what this looks like right now. I'm gonna put them into the basement, do a little bit more work, and then we've got a harvest for the CSA tomorrow, as well as for an a la carte that's gonna be picked up later tonight. Don't mind my basement. This is where the stems are going to sit for a little bit. You don't want to put lilies that have been harvested in the heat directly into the cooler. It might actually cause bruising. So it's like 90 degrees outside. So they're going to sit here for a couple of hours before I put them into the cooler.
I squeezed in another half hour of work, and then it was time to prepare dinner before working out. So tonight is steak and potatoes. We typically do not eat this on a regular basis, maybe once a quarter. It is a bit of an indulgence. We buy our beef from a farm literally across the street from the country store. It is high quality beef. For a while, I actually gave up beef because of sustainability reasons, but honestly, I love steak and I love hot dogs, so we will indulge in that once in a while. And if you haven't had sous vide steak, you must try it.
Can you write the movements, please? I see. Okay. Wait, what's that one? DU. PU.
Oh.
Your handwriting is terrible.
And then back around.
Time to work off those calories before dinner. Today's workout is called b.a.r.e. At least that's what I called it. Now, I had to scale this workout because of my shoulder, so no barbell movements for me, and I am still scaling pull-ups after being postpartum and not really having any shoulder strength for over a year. The goal here was for me to beat Eric because I have no excuse in terms of getting winded. All I have to do is make sure that I can keep up with him during the run. I am actually more of an endurance type of athlete, but I am better at anything over 5K compared to Eric. Eric is an all-around great athlete. He swam for most of his life, including college. So to beat him means I usually have to scale and be intentional about beating him. By the way, I did beat him. Overall, the workout took just under 10 minutes, and I hope that this demonstrates for you how you can have constantly varied functional types of movements in the gym with a high level of variety so that every day feels different.
Oh, it smells so good.
I know that you are waiting to see how the steak turned out, and let me tell you, it was bangin' delicious. I feel incredibly lucky that we can have quality steak like this at home without needing to go to a steakhouse and for a fraction of the price. And E also turned out that she loves steak too.
Oh, no.
It's a little after 9. E went down. I know she has a late bedtime, but we like doing our little walk after dinner. And now I'm going to get ready 30 stems of lilies because another grower is going to pick them up in the morning tomorrow. I have a lot to do in the morning. I need to go harvest for the CSA vase arrangements. I need to make them. And then I also need to make some more bouquets for the country store. The one thing that saves me on Fridays in the summer is that we actually get summer Fridays, and I can't tell you how helpful that is. Like when I don't have summer Fridays during the rest of the season, it is such a struggle. And summer tends to be a little bit lighter in terms of workload. I would say that most of the time I don't get all of these pockets of dead time, nor am I able to come back as early. So I really do enjoy summer and try to take advantage of it.
Afterwards, I spent some time on the couch doing computer work for my personal day job, but one thing I did find myself doing less of this week was dedicated computer time for creating content for my Patreon, my newsletter, or future YouTube videos, as well as responding back to YouTube comments. Now, I personally believe that if you took the time out of your busy schedule to write me a comment, then I owe it to you to reply back with a thoughtful response. I respond back to at least 99% of the comments, and if I don't, it's probably because I didn't understand what you were saying or there was really nothing to comment on. But tonight I did a few things. First, I brainstormed the thumbnail for this video. This is something called packaging, and it's something I'll go into a little bit more detail later. But I did that, and I also planned out what my Friday would look like. Because I had such a busy Friday, I actually wrote out by time blocks what I needed to do to make sure that everything would get done. Of course, afterwards, Eric came back with some more food. Can you believe he was hungry after that dinner? And I just had to have a bite of whatever he was eating. There's no better way to end the evening than with ice cream. So in case if you can tell by now, I have a pretty big sweet tooth, but let's talk numbers. Today, I spent the least amount of time on b.a.r.e Flower Farm, a total of 1 hour and 45 minutes, with the bulk of that related to content creation. So 1 hour for YouTube and only 10 minutes on the flower farm. The field work that I had was only related to harvesting, so I didn't even make any bouquets. Now, I would say that this 1 hour and 45 minutes is a little bit more indicative of what I typically spend between Tuesday through Thursday when I have to go into the office. I don't go to the cooperative every single Wednesday because it is very time consuming, and typically I don't have enough flowers to make it worth it. But this month I do plan on going every single Wednesday because I do have that abundance of flowers.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Get out of here. Go. Go. These deer are unbelievable. Anyway, it is around 6:45. We are going to go harvest. So again, we have to go harvest for the CSA vase arrangements, the country store, and I'm going to try to harvest enough for the Girl Scouts event tonight. So kind of like a decent size harvest right now that I need to do. So I harvested 2 small buckets worth of flowers. This should be
plenty for the CSA. Not sure about for tonight, as well as the country store should be enough, but I'm really loving the bells. Like, look at this. This is 2 stems worth, and this is like early bells. So imagine when these get bigger and taller. I can't wait. And a florist was texting me yesterday saying that local bells are the best. So even though they can get them in shipped wholesale, local bells are obviously a lot more fresh and hold up and look perkier. So we're gonna go inside, wake E up, get her ready for school, and then let these condition. I have a florist coming to pick up those 30 stems, and then got a couple of meetings, and we'll make some of these vase arrangements. I just had to show this because I am always mind blown at how quickly kids develop. E is just a little over 14 months, and you can see that she's already being able to help us. Now, it's not anything crazy, but she's helping take out the cutlery. Sometimes you see her closing cabinets and trying to push doors closed because that's what she sees us doing. So it's really fun and fulfilling to see how quickly these kids can develop. Eric had a full day of work out of the house, so he took E to daycare, and I took the 10 minutes after they left to clean up the living room because it's been a hot minute since I've been able to do any kind of vacuuming. Plan on working on the couch for a little bit for my personal day job, and I don't know about you, but less clutter just makes me feel a little bit better. At this point, I was really glad that I spent some time that evening doing some of my personal day job work because that really put me ahead this morning. In fact, I didn't have any meetings this morning. I was able to get everything done before lunch and basically get a head start on making bouquets. Now, I had a couple of other things that I was waiting on to be able to finish in the afternoon, but that meant that I could actually start working on bouquets more quickly. I had to also give myself a pat on the back for making that prioritized list because without it, I would have completely forgotten that I needed to take a thumbnail photo. So this is what I'm doing here. I look ridiculous. I thought Eric would be at home, but he wasn't. So I'm basically taking a video of myself and then taking certain points in that video to create a thumbnail out of, which you will see that process later, but that took about 5 minutes. It was finally time to make the vase arrangements, and to be honest, I was a little bit nervous because I suck at designing, and this is the first time that I had to make 4 within a reasonably short period of time. But honestly, I had a ton of fun and it went a lot better than I had thought. So I had a lot of flowers to work with. I felt like I had permission to quote unquote overstuff. Many of these lilies that I'm using are actually perennialized lilies, and of course you guys know that the yarrow, the sea holly, are all things that have been perennialized before. But also, this was me intentionally actually taking the time to say to myself, hey, I don't have the pressure of needing to feel like, hey, I need to make these bouquets within a certain amount of time to be profitable. This was also permission for me to take my time with the design, and to be honest, I was really proud of the outcome.
I just finished, made total of 4 arrangements. It took actually only about 45 minutes, which is less than what I had expected. And I felt like I actually learned along the way. The first arrangement I wasn't super thrilled with. The second one, I started realizing that if I had shorter stems in the beginning with filler, I could really build the lilies on top. And I got really, really happy with how that one turned out. By the time I got to the third one, I was running out of lilies. So let me show you what these look like. So let's go in order. This is the first one that I made. I ended up editing it a little bit to make it a little bit shorter, but I actually still need to edit a little bit more. There's just like a little too much going on over here. But as you can see, it's pretty big, and I mean, it makes a statement, right? So this is number 1, and I would say that needs improvement. Good enough, but needs improvement. This one, I'm a lot happier with. And I think it's just because it feels like it's full without being overwhelming and just has a lot of uniqueness and structure. So when I turn it around, this is what it looks like. And I also love the colors. So actually, let me take out these over here. If you take these out earlier, then there's no pollen that drops onto the table, which is nice. Putting it into my bucket over here. But anyway, so this is one that I'm actually really happy with. So this is number 2. Let's put this on my little cart over here that Eric bought and I've stolen. Number 3 is this one. So love the colors. I am a like saturated, bold color type of person.
some more crest in this one. I love the flare that the bells of Ireland give. And I would say that this is a decent arrangement. I mean, look, they're all good, especially for the amount that I priced them at. They're worth $40. Everyone who signed up was actually a prior CSA member. And so there was a little bit of a discount, but I mean, this is a steal in my book. And then this is the last one, which more simple, but I love it. I love the colors, and this is what I'm talking about, like having different heights of the lilies and just having a little bit more structure, like less crest, but just enough to give it a little bit of pop. The bells of Ireland over here. I've noticed that if you don't keep them straight in a bucket, they will bend. Totally fine in an application like this. And then we've obviously got lilies that haven't yet opened up. So this will be a bang. This is actually eyeliner, which I was trying to get. The supplier didn't have enough, so I got a sub. But every one of these has one rose lily, which is going to take probably about 5 days to open up indoors. So I've got a vase life here where I'm hoping will probably be around 2 weeks. The yarrow can certainly stay for 2 weeks. The sea holly also, some of the lilies are going to get tired and I'll tell them to replace them or to just snip them off. But like this is a really good example where this lily will probably fade in like 4 or 5 days. You've got tertiary buds over here that will definitely open up. So yeah, this is number 4. Here are the total 4 again. I'm really, really proud of how these turned out. This was meant to be just me practicing design, not having any stress with time constraints in the sense that I'm like, oh my God, how much time am I spending on arrangement? Really focusing on upping that design game for, you know, just myself, like to have as a skill. Maybe I'll use it a little bit more in the future, but I'm constantly trying to improve things that I know that I'm weak in. So this was really good. And I get to do this 4 times a month. And the way that this works is I only had 3 people sign up. I didn't do a ton of marketing. And I have 4 because I think it's really great for the last person who picks up to be able to choose. And then I will actually keep the last arrangement. So I get a little bit something out of this. So obviously there's extra product that is going to quote unquote waste. It's not waste because I get to enjoy it. But yeah, like I think that this is a really good compromise to be able to showcase what you have to be able to improve. And now I have photos for future vase arrangements if I want to do this again. And I kind of like not having a ton of CSA members coming to pick up. I know that some people like won't do below a certain amount, but I find that fewer is not necessarily bad if there's another goal that you have. I think the other thing to note is that I definitely overstuffed, could not help myself, courtesy of Mr. Crane from Cranery Gardens. So I don't have as many stems left to make the bouquets for the country store, which is fine because it's a furnace outside and I just don't want those bouquets sitting in the sun unsold. I'd rather just bring more tomorrow morning, and then I'll probably have to do a later evening harvest with the Girl Scouts, which is fine because I think they would actually like to harvest along the way. So I'm gonna get going to making those country bouquets.
After making those vase arrangements, for whatever reason, these felt a lot easier and literally took me about a minute each to make.
It is now close to 11. I have to go do some more work. I'll work into lunch to make up for the last hour that I had, but I had a little bit of free time, so I was able to pump these all out. Again, flexibility of a full-time job is so important to be able to do something like this. So I'll see you back after my meetings. I just got back from the country store and 2 bouquets sold. So now there's a total of 3 in the bucket, which is actually enough. So remember, we are still trying to build traffic and get people to recognize that there are flowers there. And we are actually getting some more steady momentum, which is really nice. In the meantime, I brought in these vase arrangements where they will condition for the next couple of hours. I actually have a YouTube interview over the next hour, and then afterwards I will be working. So then I actually flipped my Summer Friday schedule around again. Thank you, flexibility. And that means that at the hottest time of the day, I'm gonna be able to do computer work. And afterwards, when I'm done, hopefully in the later afternoon, it'll be less hot and I'll be able to actually do some more work.
At this point, I just finished my interview with Tara of Wild Bird Farms for a YouTube interview, and now it's time for me to prepare for the CSA pickup. I create signage as well as a sign-in sheet. You'll see what I'm talking about after, but I do all of this in Canva. I took a template that I had made for the winter tulip subscription pickup and modified it for the vase arrangement pickup. I wanted some photos, which is why I basically did 2 setups, and ultimately I put the vases into a box to help facilitate my customers being able to transport the arrangements home in a way that wouldn't bruise or damage the flowers. Even though it's technically my customer's responsibility, I want to make sure that they have a good experience. After I finished my work, it was time to now work on the thumbnail. Now, I am spending at least 15 to 20 minutes per video figuring out the thumbnail, and you're gonna see I do a couple of iterations. Eric came home and I asked him, did this make sense? And he said, absolutely not. I have no idea what you're talking about. So I went to ChatGPT and asked for some alternatives. Then I asked my friend Jordan which one made more sense to her. So as you can see, I do a lot of iterations because I can make the best video in the world, but it doesn't matter if nobody clicks on it. And this is one main thing that I started changing this year, which is basically spending a lot more time on this packaging of the thumbnail as well as the title of the video to make sure that I am maximizing my click-through rates.
Woohoo! Work is out. It is just a little bit past 5, so I have about 45 minutes before I have to go pick up E. And heute ist Pause, which is German for today is rest. I always thought that was funny when they said that in Berlin, but we're gonna get some of those plugs into the ground because it's been so hot that every single day I have to water them, and I'm gonna put some shade cloth on them so that they can actually endure the next few days, which is going to be scorching hot for where we are. It's gonna be high 90s.
I got a lot more in than I expected over a 30-minute time span. I got in about a third a tray of ageratum as well as a third of tray of asters. Now, one thing you'll notice is that I am opening up space again after shrinking my grow space, and it's because I am running out of space. But the greatest part about using wood chips is the fact that it prevented weeds from popping up, and I can just pull apart the wood chips to the side and then plant directly in because the soil was kept cover and moist, and it looks so good underneath. So not only did that make for quick and easy planting, but I think that the roots will be super happy in that healthy soil.
So I don't know if you can tell from the sky, but we just had a severe thunderstorm warning. There was a ton of wind gusts. So I dropped everything, went to go pick up E a little bit earlier. Eric got some takeout. Believe it or not, this is the first time I've ever had Chinese takeout, because as an American-born Chinese, typical Chinese takeout is not genuine Chinese food takeout. And I'm disappointed. Eric's happy. I call him a white boy Asian because Eric might look Asian, but he grew up here with a second generation dad who is Korean, and his mother is Indonesian and from Indonesia. But I just feel like he never got the upbringing that I got with real Chinese food. Anyway, I left dinner early so that I could prepare for the Girl Scouts. Luckily, it stopped raining. I have these handouts. Here's the finalized version, but I want to get to harvesting a little bit more just so that we have some options in case if it rains. And then, yeah, we'll go from there.
It is now just after 9 p.m. The Girl Scouts left around 8. I came back, I put E to bed. It was such a fun time. So I told you that there were storms, and luckily the sky cleared, so we were able to do our field tour. So we actually went through in order of the plants that I had on the handout. We talked about why local is important, what it means to grow organically without sprays. So talked a little bit about regenerative gardening, and it was just funny because you could tell that the girls were interested, but they were a little bit shy. The mothers, however, were super, super excited, curious, full of questions. So it was a pretty engaged group. I harvested along the way, and then afterwards, the girls had a chance to make their own bouquets. So I basically snipped off the ends for them, rubber banded it for them, and they were able to take them home. So it was overall a really, really fun time, and it was just really great to get get some kids out. So the kids are 11 years old. I had permission and was able to use this photo. We had a rainbow that appeared right after, which was perfect timing. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And this is something that I definitely want to do more often. I want to provide the community with a way to allow kids to come out and experience something like this, all for free, because really at the end of the day, this is an investment in the next generation and really allowing them to build a more sustainable tomorrow. I mean, that's why Eric and I care so much about sustainability. We're not like granola tree huggers. We do what we do because we know that if we don't, it's the next generation and their next generation that suffers. So we do it for our kids. All right, so I can't believe it's the end of the week, and I can't believe I got through today. I'm going to start off by saying that this was an above average week in terms of activity. Normally, I do not have such a loaded Friday. Typically, my Fridays, even with a summer Friday, I might do like one consulting call or one interview. It's not like an interview plus a CSA pickup plus Girl Scouts. So this was definitely above average. I would say that this is above average in terms of the amount of time I spent actually on the flower farm doing stuff versus content creation. So kind of funny because the intention of this video is to show you how much time I spent on content creation. Now, one thing to note is that there's times that I haven't been able to capture in terms of the final day calculation. These are literally like seconds or minutes of me responding to an Instagram DM or me doing something that literally takes 30 seconds. But all of it does add up. And I would say on a daily basis, you know, that stuff can probably accumulate up to 15 minutes. One of the things as I've gotten a bigger following is I get more messages on Instagram, and similar to YouTube, I try to respond to everything, but it's getting to the point where it's a little bit hard for me to respond very quickly. So I actually batch respond, and that's why sometimes I might be off for like 2-3 days and you'll hear from me. I'm typically trying to dig out of my inbox. So I always try to respond. If you can't reach me through DM, email me. And nowadays I am actually offering consulting calls. I haven't made that very public. It's on the landing page of my newsletter, but if you are interested, I do consulting calls on Friday. And this is really more about selling, branding, pricing, figuring out the business side of things, right? So we're not talking about growing. I mean, we can talk about growing, but growing, I feel like there's plenty of resources out there. This is more about if you need help when it comes to selling, if you're in your first couple of years, you don't know what sales outlets to pursue, that kind of stuff. All right. So with all that being said, I am going to go take a shower and then I need to finish editing. So I will have some more remarks after a shower first.
It is time to tally up today's numbers and then I will add up the whole week. But today I spent a total of just over 6 hours on b.a.r.e Flower Farm. 3 hours and 15 minutes was spent on content creation, with the lion's share of that being editing this video. It has taken me over 2 hours today alone, and I would say that this is definitely one of my longer videos to edit. So then I also had that YouTube interview, and then of course I spent close to 3 hours on field work between harvesting and planting. So this was definitely an above average day, especially for a Friday, even though it was a summer Friday. So let's talk about this entire week. This entire week, I actually spent a total of close to 25 hours on b.a.r.e Flower Farm. Now, if we split that into the YouTube content side versus the flower farm side, we're looking about 10 hours on YouTube and about 14 and a half hours on the flower farm side. So a total of 25 hours is basically a little bit more than a normal part-time job. But the real question is, how much money did I make this week if I'm spending this much time? So all in all, I would say I made about $892 this week. And that is, of course, broken up into both flower sales and YouTube content creation. From a flower sales perspective, I made about $714, and this is the sum of selling wholesale stems through the cooperative to florists on the side, through selling my CSA bouquets as well as retail bouquets at the country store. That added up to $714. From a content perspective, I am now finally gaining enough momentum on YouTube where some of my older videos are getting viewed on a constant basis and new videos are contributing to ad revenue. So on a weekly basis, that plus my Patreon is contributing to about $178, which means that in totality, I am making $892. Now, again, this was an above average flower sales week for me, but from a content creation perspective, I had spent about 10 hours this week. And if I were to value my time at $20 an hour, we're talking about roughly over $200 worth of cost in terms of content creation. And I'm not there yet in terms of revenue. So this is what I mean by saying that, yes, I make something off of the YouTube videos, but really not enough to fully compensate for my time. Now, typically I'm not editing this much, so I think that I would probably be breaking even at this point. But if you've gotten this far in this video, first of all, thank you so much. I appreciate your support, but hit the like button if you've gotten this far. And I would also love to know in the comments, did you like this style of video? Was there anything that was surprising to you? What would you like me to elaborate on? All of that kind of feedback is super important for me. I always read all of the comments, and anytime you give me constructive feedback, it is always welcome with open arms. So with that, I am going to wrap up this video because I think it's going to take a long time for me to export. But again, thank you for staying with me throughout the entire week, and I will see you in the next video.